When Greg Moreno unfolded my grandmother's letter, my mother reached across the table and rested 2 fingers on the envelope, like she was blessing it. The event barn had gone completely quiet. Nearly 80 people were sitting beneath strings of warm lights, waiting to hear what Yvonne Hawkins had left for whichever granddaughter got engaged first. My sister Cassandra sat beside our father with a glass of sparkling wine in her hand. She looked nervous until Greg read the first line. "I have a confession to make." Cassandra's shoulders dropped. My mother looked down at her plate. Greg continued reading in the careful voice attorneys use when they don't want to become part of what's written. According to the letter, my grandmother regretted allowing an accounting dispute to divide our family. No one person had been responsible. Cassandra and I had both made mistakes. My parents had only tried to protect the vineyard. 10 lost years could be repaired if we all chose forgiveness. It sounded warm. It sounded reasonable. It also sounded nothing like my grandmother. Across the room, Danny's best man pushed back his chair. Cody Banks had been quiet through the whole reading. Now he stood with one hand inside his suit jacket. "Greg," he said, "don't close that file yet." My mother's fingers tightened around the envelope. "My name is Natalie Hawkins, and I'm 33 years old. If you've ever watched your family protect the person who hurt you, then you'll understand why I stayed quiet that night. Please like and subscribe before I tell you how we got there." 3 weeks earlier, my life had been pleasantly boring. I lived with Danny in a narrow brick house in Richmond. It had a front porch barely wide enough for 2 chairs and a kitchen drawer that jammed whenever we put more than 4 dish towels in it. Danny was an architect. I was a CPA at a regional accounting firm downtown. Most mornings he left first and forgot his travel mug. Most evenings I found it sitting beside the shoe rack. We'd met in 2022 at a friend's birthday dinner. Danny had spent half the night trying to fix a restaurant table that rocked every time someone leaned on it. He folded a cardboard coaster into smaller and smaller pieces until the table finally stayed level. I watched him test it with both hands. "You know they have employees for that," I said. "They've accepted the wobble," he said. "That doesn't mean I have to." That was Danny. He noticed small problems and dealt with them before they became large ones. It took me a while to get used to that. He proposed on a Sunday morning in May. There was no photographer hiding in the bushes. We were walking beside the James River after breakfast, and I was complaining about a client who kept labeling personal expenses as business development. Danny stopped near a bench. "I need to ask you something before you explain the boat payment again. The boat payment is the worst part." "I'm sure it is." He reached into his jacket pocket. I remember looking at his face, then at the small blue ring box, then back at his face. "Oh," I said. Danny laughed. "That's not technically an answer. He asked me to marry him. I said yes." An older couple walking past noticed what was happening and clapped. I cried just enough to make my nose red in every picture we took afterward. By lunchtime, Danny's mother knew. By dinner, our close friends knew. The next morning, Danny posted a picture of my hand resting over his on the river bench. That was how my family found out. My mother called 11 minutes after the picture went up. I knew because I stared at her name on my phone until it stopped ringing. Then I checked the time. Danny was standing at the counter, slicing an apple. "Are you going to call her back?" he asked. "Probably." That sounded convincing. "She hasn't called me in 7 months. He set the knife down. "Do you want me here when you do?" I nodded. My mother answered before the first full ring. "Natalie." "Hi, Mom. You're engaged?" "Yes." "To Danny?" I looked at him. He raised one eyebrow. "Yes, Mom." "To Danny." "Well, I know that. I just meant it happened. It happened yesterday. And we found out online." Her voice had that familiar softness. Other people heard concern in it. I heard the invoice attached. "We were telling people in our own order," I said. "We're your parents." "I know." There was a short silence. My father said something in the background too low for me to catch. Then my mother's tone changed. It became bright and almost formal. "We're happy for you. Your father is happy too. Cassandra will be thrilled." I didn't answer that last part. Cassandra and I hadn't spoken since Christmas of 2023. Even then, she'd only asked whether I planned to sell my share of the vineyard. She called it freeing myself from an old burden. I called it $4.3 million worth of property she wanted to control alone. At the time, neither of us owned the vineyard directly. Our grandmother's trust did. Cassandra and I were equal beneficiaries, and Greg Moreno administered everything. Large decisions required his approval. Cassandra ran daily operations with my parents. I received quarterly statements in Richmond and answered exactly as many family emails as necessary. My mother cleared her throat. "We'd like to do something for you and Danny. That's kind, but we haven't made any plans yet. An engagement party, here at Hawkins Ridge." My hand tightened around the phone. Danny stopped cutting the apple. The vineyard was outside Middleburg, off Featherbed Lane. I hadn't attended a family event there since my grandmother's funeral in 2021. I had returned twice for trust meetings, both held in Greg's office near Warrenton. I hadn't stepped into the event barn in almost 10 years. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said. "Why wouldn't it be? You know why. Natalie, it's been a decade. That was how my mother handled the past. Once enough time had passed, facts became bad manners. We can host something in Richmond," I said. "This isn't only about us." "What does that mean?" Another silence. My father spoke more clearly in the background. "Just tell her." My mother lowered her voice. "Greg called this morning. Your grandmother left instructions connected to the trust." "What instructions?" "She left a sealed letter." I pulled out a chair and sat. Danny moved the knife away from the edge of the counter. He did things like that when he was worried. "What kind of letter?" I asked. "I don't know. It's sealed." "Then why are you calling me about it?" "Because it has to be read at an engagement celebration. Whichever granddaughter got engaged first." I thought she was making it up. That was honestly my first reaction. My grandmother had been precise to the point of irritation. She labeled freezer containers with the date, the contents, and the shelf where they belonged. She wouldn't have left a vague family surprise without telling her attorney exactly how to handle it. "When did Grandma write this?" "I don't know." "Did Greg say?" "He can explain the details. Then I'll call him." My mother inhaled. Of course. I only thought it would be nice if the family arranged the celebration together. There it was. Not warmth, access. I didn't understand what she wanted access to yet. "I'll talk to Danny," I said. "Don't wait too long. Apparently there's a deadline." "What deadline?" 30 days from when the engagement becomes public. I looked toward Danny's phone on the counter. His post had been up for less than an hour. My mother continued before I could respond. "We can use the event barn. Cassandra says the second Saturday in June is open. We'll handle the flowers, the food, everything. You won't need to lift a finger." Cassandra already knew the barn schedule. She had already discussed the date. My mother had called, sounding surprised, but they'd been planning before she dialed. I said, "I'll talk to Danny." "All right, I'm trying, Natalie. I know." I ended the call. Danny put the apple slices on a plate and sat across from me. "What's in the letter?" he asked. "She says she doesn't know." "You don't believe her." "No." "Do you believe the letter exists?" "I believe Greg called." That distinction mattered. I called his office from the kitchen. His assistant put me through immediately. Greg Moreno had handled my grandmother's legal work for more than 20 years. He had a low voice and a habit of pausing before answering, even when the answer was simple. First he said, "Congratulations. Thank you. I take it Sharon contacted you." "She did." What exactly did my grandmother leave? A sealed personal letter and a written instruction regarding its reading. The letter is to be opened in the presence of both beneficiaries, the trustee, and available immediate family. It must be read aloud at an engagement celebration held within 30 days of the first public engagement announcement. Why? The instruction doesn't provide a reason. Have you read the letter? No. Has my mother? Not through my office. That was lawyer language. I noticed it, but I didn't know what to do with it yet. Greg continued. Your grandmother was clear that the contents were to remain sealed until the gathering. Where is it now? in the secure file room here. And it stays there? There was another pause. It remains a trust document under my control. That wasn't the same answer. I looked at Danny. He had opened his laptop, but wasn't pretending to work. My mother mentioned the event barn, I said. She and Cassandra offered it as the venue. From the trust's standpoint, that would satisfy the instruction. What happens if I refuse the party? The letter still needs to be read within the deadline. And if it isn't, the trust authorizes me to arrange a compliant gathering. I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the table. Greg, is this connected to the ownership shares? Potentially. What does that mean? It means there are provisions in the trust that may be relevant depending on the letter's contents. I waited. He waited too. Which provisions? I asked. The primary one is a forfeiture for cause clause. I'd read the trust summary after my grandmother died. I'd seen references to beneficiary misconduct, but I assumed they covered future actions involving vineyard property. I had never been given a reason to study that section closely. Explain it without the attorney version. If either beneficiary is shown through a verified written admission to have defrauded the vineyard or the estate, that beneficiary forfeits her interest. The interest transfers to the other named beneficiary. I sat very still. Has anyone made a verified written admission? Not that I can confirm. That answer bothered me more than a plain no. Could the sealed letter be one? I don't know what the letter contains, Natalie. Grandma never mentioned this to me. She didn't discuss every provision with either beneficiary. Did Cassandra know about the clause? She received the same trust documents you did. That meant yes, or at least that she could have known. After we hung up, Danny closed his laptop. Start from the beginning, he said. So I did. I told him about Hawkins Ridge in the years before he knew me. I told him about my grandmother Yvonne, who planted the first vines in 1988 with borrowed equipment and more nerve than money. By the time Cassandra and I were adults, the vineyard had a tasting room, an event barn, and regular wedding bookings from spring through late fall. Cassandra was 3 years older than me and had always looked like she belonged there. She was charming with couples. She remembered which bride hated peonies and which father wanted bourbon kept behind the bar. My parents called her a natural. I liked the office. After college, I became the vineyard's bookkeeper. I tracked vendor bills, payroll, event deposits, tasting room sales, and tax payments. I was 22 when I started. I was 23 when it ended. In June of 2016, my father asked me to come into the small conference room behind the tasting room. My mother and Cassandra were already seated. There was a yellow legal pad in front of my father. He didn't write anything on it. My mother started. We have a serious problem. What happened? There's money missing. I looked at Cassandra. She was staring at the window. How much? I asked. My father said, $85,000. I thought I had misheard him. From where? Events and tasting room revenue, my mother said. Over about 15 months. I stood there trying to place the accounts in my head. Deposits came through several channels. Wedding clients often paid by check. Tasting room cash moved through weekly batches. Cassandra managed the event contracts, while I entered what her department submitted. That doesn't make sense, I said. My mother folded her hands. The reconciliations were your responsibility. Yes, and they balanced against the records I received. Clearly, they didn't. Which months are wrong? My father finally looked at me. This isn't the time to defend yourself. I'm not defending myself. I'm asking which months. Cassandra shifted in her chair. My mother glanced at her, then back at me. It was quick, but I saw it. We're still determining the extent, she said. Then how do you know the amount? No one answered. I asked to see the bank statements. My mother said they were being reviewed. I asked for the event files. Cassandra said some had been moved for storage. I asked who discovered the shortfall. My father pushed the legal pad away. Your grandmother noticed discrepancies. Where is she? She's at home. I want to talk to her. My mother's mouth tightened. Yvonne is extremely upset. So am I. Natalie, don't make this harder. That sentence stayed with me because I had not taken $1. Still, I was the person making things hard. They fired me that afternoon. Not suspended, not placed on leave. Fired. My mother had already packed my desk into 2 white wine boxes. My framed college photograph was on top. Under it were my calculator, 3 notebooks, a blue stapler, and the spare cardigan I kept over my chair. Cassandra followed me into the office. "I'm sorry," she said. I turned around. "For what?" "For all of it. You manage the event deposits, and you manage the books." She said it softly, almost like she was helping me remember. "Did you know money was missing?" "No." "Did you change any of the event records?" Her eyes moved toward the hallway. "Mom said we shouldn't talk until the review is finished. You're talking now. I came to see if you needed help carrying your things." I picked up both boxes. "No." By the next week, the staff had been told that poor bookkeeping caused a major revenue loss. Family friends heard I'd let the accounts get away from me. My mother called it an unfortunate failure of oversight. Cassandra kept her job. My grandmother called me once, 4 days after I left. "Do you still have your copies?" she asked. I was sitting on the floor of my apartment because I hadn't bought a table yet. "Copies of what?" "The event ledgers, the reports you took home." "Yes, keep them." "Grandma, did I miss something?" She went quiet. "You trusted what people gave you," she said. "That doesn't answer me." "No, it doesn't. Did you tell Mom and Dad to fire me?" Another pause. "I told them the vineyard could not continue as it had." I felt my throat tighten. "That isn't what I asked." "I know." She never gave me a clearer answer. At the time, I believed her silence meant she agreed with them. I moved to Richmond 2 weeks later. I worked temporary accounting jobs, studied at night, and earned my CPA license in 2019. My parents didn't attend the ceremony. My grandmother sent white roses and a card with one sentence inside. "You were always better with the truth than they deserved." I kept the card. I didn't understand it. When she died in 2021, the will surprised everyone. Hawkins Ridge didn't pass to my father. It went into the trust, divided equally between Cassandra and me. My mother called the arrangement cruel. Cassandra called it impractical. My father said almost nothing. I told Danny all of this at our kitchen table. When I finished, the apple slices had gone brown around the edges. He leaned back. "So the last time your grandmother spoke to you about the missing money, she told you to keep your records?" "Yes. And now there's a sealed letter that may connect to fraud." "Maybe." "Your mother learned about that letter this morning and immediately offered to control the party." "Yes." "And your sister had already checked the barn calendar." "Yes." Danny looked toward my phone. "What records did you keep?" "The reports I took home in 2016. "Where are they?" I hadn't opened those boxes in years. They were in the small room we used as an office, behind old tax files and a broken printer we kept meaning to recycle. I went upstairs. Danny followed. The box was gray with a cracked plastic lid. My handwriting was still on the side. Hawkins Ridge, event revenue, 2015 to 2016. I set it on the floor between us. My phone rang downstairs. I didn't need to check the screen to know it was my mother calling again. Danny crouched beside the box. "Do you want to answer?" I lifted the cracked lid. "No," I said. "Not yet." I carried the box downstairs and put it on the dining table. The phone stopped ringing. A few seconds later, my mother left a voicemail. "Natalie, I know this is a lot to take in. Call me when you've had time to think. We really do want this to be a happy occasion." Danny listened from the doorway. "She's using her company voice," he said. "What company voice?" "The one she used at Christmas when the caterer dropped those potatoes." I almost smiled. She was furious about those potatoes. She said, "We all understand that things happen." I thought the caterer was going to cry. I turned back to the box. The first folder held monthly bank reconciliations. I had printed them at the end of each period and made notes in pencil along the margins. The next folder held event revenue reports. Behind those were deposit schedules, tasting room summaries, and copies of emails I'd attached to anything unusual. I hadn't taken original vineyard records. These were working copies I kept because I sometimes finished reconciliations from home. When I was fired, no one asked for them. That had always seemed strange. At 23, I thought it meant my parents had already decided my work was worthless. At 33, I saw another possibility. They hadn't asked what I possessed because they didn't want a detailed conversation about the records. Danny pulled out a chair. "What are we looking for?" "I don't know yet. That's not your usual answer. I usually know what the question is." I took out the first reconciliation and placed it flat on the table. It covered March of 2015, the beginning of the period my parents said contained the missing money. The bank balance matched the book balance after outstanding checks and deposits in transit. I checked my old pencil marks. I checked the attached bank page. I ran the numbers again on the calculator from the box. It balanced. The next month balanced too. So did May. Danny watched me work for about 20 minutes before he got up. Coffee? Yes. Food? Eventually. He made sandwiches anyway and left one near my elbow. I went month by month. I didn't skim. I rebuilt every reconciliation from the documents I had. When there was a difference, I traced it to the note beside it. A merchant fee, a returned check, a payroll correction. Nothing stayed unexplained. By 9 that evening, I had reviewed 6 months. Every one of them balanced against the information entered into the vineyard's accounting system. That didn't prove the revenue was complete. It proved something narrower. I had not ignored an $85,000 hole sitting inside the bank reconciliations. The money had been kept outside the records I was given, or the records had been changed before they reached me. Danny came in after showering. His hair was wet, and he had changed into the old Virginia Tech shirt he wore to sleep. "You found something." "I found what isn't there." He sat across from me. The reconciliations weren't sloppy. They're clean. Could someone have made them look clean? I made them. If I wanted to hide missing revenue, I wouldn't do it this way. How would you do it? I looked at him. I wouldn't. You know what I mean. You'd keep the missing amount from entering the books at all. If an event deposit was paid in cash and nobody submitted the receipt, I'd have nothing to record. The bank would still match the ledger because the cash never reached either one. So somebody could steal money without creating a difference. Yes, if they controlled the first record. Who controlled that? The person taking the payment. He waited for me to say Cassandra's name. I didn't. Event deposits came through several people. Cassandra handled most wedding contracts, but tasting room managers accepted private party payments. My mother sometimes took checks directly from longtime clients. Even my father covered the front desk when staffing was tight. I wasn't going to begin with the person I disliked most and force the records to point at her. That was what my family had done to me. I closed the folder. I need the event calendar. Is that in the box? Parts of it. The calendars were printed 1 month at a time. They showed weddings, corporate dinners, tastings, rehearsal dinners, and private parties. Some pages had coffee marks. One had a purple streak across the corner from a printer cartridge that needed replacing. I arranged them by date. Each booked event had a contract number. That number should have appeared in the revenue report when the client paid a deposit. If the event was canceled, the file should show whether the deposit was refunded or retained. I compared March, then April. By the time I reached June, I found the first gap. The calendar listed a Saturday wedding in the East Field, 112 guests, tent rental, full beverage package. The contract number did not appear in the event revenue report. I checked the month before and the month after. Nothing. There was a handwritten note beside the event. Balance settled with CH. Those were Cassandra's initials. I read it twice. Danny leaned closer. Is that important? It might be. How much would that event have brought in? Probably between $9,000 and $12,000 total. The deposit would have been less. Could it have been entered under another number? Yes. Could it have been free? No. How do you know? Grandma didn't give away Saturday weddings in June. I pulled the next calendar page. A corporate dinner in August had the same problem. The event was listed. The contract number was absent from the revenue report. Beside it, someone had written, "Cash discount approved." The handwriting wasn't mine. I knew Cassandra's handwriting, but I didn't let myself decide from 2 words on an old calendar. There was another missing number in October, then 2 in December. Not every gap meant theft. Some clients moved dates. Some events combined contracts. Sometimes a replacement invoice carried a new number. Still, the pattern was there. The missing entries weren't random tasting room sales. They were scheduled events where someone could predict the payment date, the amount, and who would be in the office when it arrived. I made a list on a clean legal pad. Danny checked the clock. "It's after midnight, I know. You have work tomorrow." "I know." That was less effective the second time. I put down my pen. He reached across the table and turned the legal pad toward himself. I had listed 7 event dates so far. "What are you going to do with this?" "Check the rest." "And then?" "I'm going to ask for the current trust records." "From Greg?" "Yes." "Will he give them to you?" "I'm a beneficiary. He'll give me what I'm entitled to receive." Danny looked at the box, then toward the stairs. "And the party?" I had been avoiding that decision all evening. If we refused the vineyard, Greg would arrange another gathering. My mother would still attend. Cassandra would still attend. The letter would still be read. The only difference was that my family would know I didn't trust them. At that point, I had questions, not proof. "Let them host it," I said. "You're sure?" "No." "That's fair. I want to see what they do when they think I'm cooperating." Danny nodded slowly. "You realize that sounds like the beginning of a plan. It's the beginning of paying attention." The next morning, I emailed Greg from my work account before I left for the office. I asked for the complete trust agreement, all amendments, the most recent appraisal, and the sections governing beneficiary misconduct. I also asked for the written instruction connected to the sealed letter. I did not mention the old ledgers. Then I called my mother. She answered with, "Have you talked to Danny?" "I have." "And?" "We'll have the party at Hawkins Ridge." Her relief came too quickly. "Oh, Natalie, that's wonderful. We want it simple." "Of course. No press release, no vineyard mailing list, no clients invited just because they book large events. We would never turn your engagement into advertising." My mother had once placed a photograph from Cassandra's birthday dinner in a regional wedding brochure because the table settings looked expensive. "Family and actual friends," I said. "Absolutely." Greg brings the letter himself. It stays with him until he reads it. She paused. "I assume he'll follow whatever procedures are required." "That isn't what I said. Natalie, I don't control Greg." "I know. I'm telling you what Danny and I expect." Her voice cooled slightly. "Fine. And I want all communication about the party in writing." "Why?" "So details don't get confused." "What details would get confused?" "Guest count, vendors, timing, the usual things." She was quiet again. Then she laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You've always treated family like an audit." I looked through the windshield at our front porch. Danny's forgotten travel mug was sitting beside the door. "I learned to keep records at home," I said. My mother didn't respond. For one second, I wondered if I had pushed too hard. Then her company voice returned. "I'll start an email thread. Thank you. Cassandra will need to coordinate the barn setup." "That's fine. She's excited to see you. That was so unlikely I didn't bother challenging it. I have to go to work." "All right. We love you." It had been a long time since she'd said that directly. I sat in my parked car after the call ended and watched a delivery truck block half the street. I wanted the sentence to feel good. Instead, I wondered what it was covering. At the office, I had a full day of quarterly reviews. I met with a construction company whose owner had purchased equipment without telling his controller. I corrected a payroll filing. I explained to a new associate why a deposit appearing on a bank statement did not automatically prove the related revenue had been recorded correctly. That last conversation stopped me. The associate was holding a yellow highlighter over the client file. "So if the cash receipt log is incomplete," she said, The bank reconciliation can still be perfect? Exactly. Then how do we confirm completeness? You work from the outside in. Start with something independent of the books: contracts, schedules, customer confirmations. Then make sure every event reached the ledger and the bank. She nodded and wrote it down. I returned to my office and closed the door. That was exactly what I had failed to do at Hawkins Ridge. I had worked from the ledger to the bank. I confirmed that every recorded dollar went where it should. I had not worked from every vineyard event back to the ledger because Cassandra's department was supposed to submit completed event packets. That failure belonged to me. The missing money did not. There was a difference, and my family had spent 10 years making sure nobody said it aloud. Around lunch, Cassandra emailed me. The subject line was, "So happy for you. Natalie, Mom told me you and Danny agreed to have the party here. I'm really glad. I know coming back may feel strange, but I hope we can leave old tension where it belongs and make this about your future. I'm attaching some menu options. The kitchen team can do the rosemary chicken you used to like. Can't wait to celebrate you both. Love, Cass." I read it twice. Cassandra hadn't called me Cass since we were in college. She signed family birthday cards with her full name. The rosemary chicken was something I liked when I still worked at the vineyard. It hadn't been served in years because the old chef retired. The message felt assembled from details meant to prove intimacy. I opened the attachment. It was a polished catering proposal with 3 menu choices and a vineyard logo across the top. The file creation date showed it had been made the previous afternoon. That was before Danny posted our engagement. I checked again. The proposal had been created at 4:17 on Sunday. Our picture went online Monday morning. I called Danny. He answered quietly, "I'm in a materials meeting. Is everything okay? Did you tell anyone in my family before you posted?" "No." "Anyone connected to the vineyard?" "No." "Why?" "They made a catering proposal for our engagement party yesterday." There was a short pause. "Could they have used an old file?" "It was created yesterday. Maybe your mother guessed. Based on what?" "I don't know." Someone spoke near him. Danny lowered his voice. "Can I call you in 20 minutes?" "Yes. Don't reply to your sister yet. I wasn't going to." He called back from the stairwell of his office building. We went through everyone who knew on Sunday. His mother, his sister, 2 close friends, and Cody. None had a connection to my family that we knew about. Danny had bought the ring months earlier, but he hadn't told my parents. "Did you reserve anything?" I asked. "No." "Call the vineyard?" "No. Look at their website from your work computer." "Natalie, I'm asking." "I know. No." The catering proposal didn't prove my mother knew about the engagement before the post. Cassandra could have changed the date information on a template. She could have made it Monday and saved it over an older file. But it gave me another reason to stop accepting things at face value. That evening, Greg's assistant sent the trust documents through a secure portal. The written instruction was only 1 page. My grandmother had signed it in front of 2 witnesses in October of 2020. It stated that the sealed personal letter must be read within 30 days after either granddaughter's engagement became public. Beneath that was 1 additional sentence: "Trustee shall retain custody until the designated gathering." I printed the page. Then I opened the full trust agreement and found the forfeiture clause. Greg had explained it accurately. A verified written admission of fraud against Hawkins Ridge or my grandmother's estate would remove the responsible beneficiary. Her entire interest would pass to the other granddaughter. There was no partial penalty, no repayment option, no trustee discretion. I read the clause until I could repeat it without looking. Then I returned to Cassandra's email and typed a reply. "Thank you. Please send me the available event files from March of 2015 through June of 2016. I want to review the historical bookings before the party." I didn't explain why. Her response arrived 6 minutes later. "Those files are archived." "What do they have to do with your engagement?" I wrote back. "Probably nothing. I'd still like to see them." This time, she took nearly an hour. Mom says we shouldn't use a happy event to reopen something that hurt everyone. The accounting issue was resolved a long time ago. I stared at the word resolved. No one had recovered the money. No one had shown me the review. No one had explained how $85,000 disappeared from clean reconciliations. They had fired me, repeated a story, and waited for time to make it sound official. I printed Cassandra's email and placed it beside my grandmother's instruction. Then I went back to the gray box and continued checking the event calendar. Near the end of May, I found a page I didn't remember keeping. It was a weekly event status sheet prepared inside Cassandra's department. 4 private events were listed with payment amounts beside them. Each line had been marked paid in full. None of those payments appeared in my ledger. At the bottom of the page, in handwriting I recognized immediately. Cassandra had written, "Do not send to accounting. Revised invoices coming." The revised invoices were not in the box. I picked up my phone, took a clear picture of the page, and saved it in 3 places. Then I turned off the dining room light and left everything exactly where it was. The next morning, I moved the documents into my home office before I left for work. I used an empty client file box and labeled it Winter Clothes. Danny watched me tape the lid. "Would your mother actually go through our house?" "No." He waited. "I don't think so." "That's more honest." I placed the box on the top shelf of the closet. The original status sheet went into a locked drawer at my office. I kept the photograph on my phone and uploaded another copy to private storage. Then I called Greg. I asked Cassandra for old event files, I said. She refused. Did she give a reason? She said they were archived and irrelevant. "What are you looking for? Documents related to the shortfall?" He paused. "Is this because of the sealed letter? It's because I have records showing paid events that never reached my ledger." The silence lasted longer that time. "What records?" he asked. "Copies from 2016. Have you shown them to anyone?" "Danny." "Anyone in your family?" "No. Keep it that way for now." I sat straighter. "That sounds like advice." "It's caution." "Why?" "Because you don't yet know what those records establish. You also don't know what the letter says. Do you?" "No." He sounded irritated, but not with me. I asked whether the trust gave me a right to inspect historical operational files. He said it did. As trustee, he could direct management to preserve and provide business records related to trust property. "I'll send the request today," he said. "Will you tell them why?" "I'll state that a beneficiary requested access. Cassandra will know it was me." "Yes." I looked through my office window. One of the junior accountants was trying to carry 3 binders and a coffee at the same time. "Then ask for the complete event archive," I said. "Not only the files I named. That will take time. We have less than 3 weeks." "I'm aware." Before we hung up, I asked one more question. "Did my grandmother ever tell you she thought I stole the money?" "No." The answer came immediately. I held the phone tighter. "Did she tell you I caused the loss?" "No." "Then what did she tell you?" That question touches confidential discussions with my client. She's dead. My duties aren't. I expected that answer. It still made me angry. Greg softened slightly. "I can tell you this much. Your grandmother did not describe you as dishonest. That isn't the same as saying she believed I did nothing wrong." "No," he said. "It isn't." After lunch, Cassandra called. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hi, Cass. What are you doing?" There was no greeting, no mention of the party. "I'm working." "You know what I mean." "Then ask the actual question. Why did you involve Greg in the archive request? Because you wouldn't send the files. They're business records. We can't ship boxes of financial information every time you get curious. I asked for copies. Some of those files don't exist anymore. That was new. What happened to them? We had a leak in the storage room a few years ago. Which files were damaged? I don't have an inventory in front of me. Was an insurance claim filed?" She exhaled sharply. "This is exactly why nobody can talk to you." I asked a simple question. "No, you asked an audit question. You told me records were destroyed by water. An insurance claim is normal. It wasn't enough damage for a claim, but enough to destroy the files I requested. I didn't say all of them were destroyed. Which ones survived? I'm trying to plan your party. I didn't ask you to. The line went quiet. When Cassandra spoke again, her voice had changed. The irritation was gone. She sounded tired. Can we please not do this? Do what? Go backward. I was blamed for $85,000. You were responsible for the books. That isn't an answer. It's the answer we've all lived with. You got to live at the vineyard. I had to leave. You chose to leave. I looked down at my desk. That was the sentence my family had settled on over the years. I chose Richmond. I chose distance. I chose not to come for holidays. The choice before those choices had disappeared. You packed my desk, I said. Mom packed your desk. You stood there while I carried it out. I was 26. I didn't know how to fix any of it. Did you know why those event payments were kept out of accounting? Her breathing changed. Only slightly. What event payments? The ones on your status sheet. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. Send it to me. No. Then how am I supposed to respond? You just did. She ended the call. I wrote down the time and what she said. Not because I thought a phone argument was evidence. I wanted a record of when her story changed. First, the old files were irrelevant. Then some didn't exist. Then she couldn't answer without seeing my copy. At 5:30, Greg forwarded his formal request to Cassandra, my parents, and the vineyard's outside accountant. He asked management to preserve all records and provide digital copies within 7 business days. My mother called 4 minutes later. I didn't answer. My father called after her. That made me stop. Dad almost never called me. He sent birthday texts with no punctuation. At Christmas, he handed the phone to my mother after about 30 seconds. I answered. Hi, Dad. Your mother's upset, I assumed. What's going on? I asked for business records. Why now? Because Grandma left a letter that could affect the trust. He lowered his voice. Greg shouldn't have told you that. The clause is in my trust agreement. I mean, he shouldn't be making you worry before the party. Greg didn't make me worry. My father was quiet. I heard a door close on his end. Natalie, your grandmother did things her own way, he said. Sometimes she set up tests for people. What kind of tests? She liked to see what people would do. That doesn't sound like her. You didn't work with her as long as I did. No, you fired me. He let out a breath. I'm not calling to fight. Then tell me why the event files were damaged. What? Cassandra says there was a leak. There was. When? I don't remember. A few winters ago. Before or after Grandma died? He hesitated. After, I think. Did you see the damage? Your mother dealt with it. That answer widened the problem. Cassandra managed the archive, but my mother had dealt with the damage. My father couldn't give me a date. All 3 of them were involved in one ordinary storage leak, yet nobody had a clear version of what happened. Dad, did Grandma believe I caused the shortfall? You were responsible for the accounting. That isn't what I asked. You missed things. What things? You should talk to your mother. She says I should talk to Cassandra. Cassandra says I should stop going backward. I'm talking to you. He didn't answer. Did Grandma believe I took money? I asked. No. It was the first direct answer anyone in my family had given me. I closed my office door. Did you? No, of course not. Then why did you let people think I did? We never said you stole it. You said my bookkeeping caused the loss. That was the finding at the time. Whose finding? He went quiet again. I could hear machinery outside on his end. The vineyard used a small tractor to move supplies between the barn and storage buildings. I pictured him standing beside the equipment shed, keeping his voice low so my mother wouldn't hear. Dad? I have to go. Whose finding was it? Come to the planning lunch on Sunday, he said. We'll sit down like a family. Will you answer me then? We'll talk. He hung up. I sat at my desk until the motion light in the hallway shut off. Danny found me there at 7. He had brought Thai food and my travel mug, which I had apparently forgotten that morning. That's usually my move, he said, setting it down. I told him about the calls. So your father doesn't think you stole anything, he said. He never thought that. That matters. It would have mattered 10 years ago. He handed me a carton of noodles. Are we going Sunday? Yes. You think they'll give you the records? No. Then why go? Because they want me there. He nodded as if that made sense. It did to me. My family had spent years comfortable with my absence. Now they wanted me at the vineyard badly enough to plan a lunch, offer old favorite foods, and call me one after another. I wanted to know what had changed. Before Sunday, I tried to locate someone who had worked inside Cassandra's department. Most of the old staff had moved on. One former tasting room manager was now in North Carolina. Another had changed numbers. Then I found Renee Ayala's contact information in an old vendor email. Renee had coordinated vineyard events before Cassandra took full control. She worked beside her through the entire period of the shortfall. I stared at the number for a while before calling. She answered with a cautious, "Hello?" "Renee, this is Natalie Hawkins." There was a pause. "I know. You still had my number?" "No. Your name came up on the screen." "Oh." Another pause. "How are you?" I asked. "I'm fine. You?" "Engaged." I heard. Of course she had. Middleburg could move information faster than an internet connection. "Congratulations," she said. "Thank you." I asked if she had a few minutes. She said she was between appointments and could talk until her next client arrived. "I'm looking at some old event records," I said. "Why?" "Because several paid events never reached accounting." Renee didn't say anything. "Do you remember revised invoices from 2015 or 2016? I remember a lot of revisions." "What kind?" "Guest counts changed. Packages changed. People added wine, removed wine, moved rooms." "Did Cassandra ever ask you to revise an invoice after it had been paid?" The pause was long enough that I checked whether the call had dropped. Finally, Renee said, "Yes." I picked up my pen. "What did she ask you to change?" "The amount. Sometimes the payment date." "Why?" "She said certain clients were getting private discounts. Were the discounts approved?" "She said they were." "By whom?" "Your mother." I wrote that down. "Did you make the changes?" "Twice. Maybe 3 times." "What happened to the original invoices?" "I gave them back to Cassandra." "Were copies sent to accounting?" "She told me she would handle it." I looked at the photograph of the status sheet on my computer. "Did you ever ask her why a paid event shouldn't be sent to me?" "Yes." "What did she say?" Renee let out a small breath. "She said you got confused when an invoice changed after payment. She said it was easier to give you the clean version." I didn't speak. It was such an ordinary insult. That was what made it believable. Cassandra hadn't needed to tell Renee I was incompetent. She only had to make me sound fussy and easily confused. "Renee, did you believe her?" "At first." "What changed?" "One of the clients called about a receipt. He'd paid a cash deposit, but the revised invoice showed a smaller total and no cash payment. Cassandra told me not to call him back." "What did you do?" "I called him from my cell." "And?" "He had a receipt for the full amount." My pen stopped. "Do you remember the event?" "Yes." "Do you have anything from it?" "No." "Natalie, this was 10 years ago." "I understand. My next client is here." "One more question. After I was fired, what were staff told?" Renee lowered her voice. "Your mother held a meeting. She said there had been an accounting failure and the family was handling it internally. We were told not to discuss old payments with you." "With me, specifically?" "Yes." "Did she say why?" "She said you were upset and might misunderstand routine corrections." There it was again. Not dishonest. Confused. Safe to ignore. Renee said she had to go. Before she ended the call, I asked whether she would speak with Greg if necessary. I don't want to be dragged into a family fight. This isn't about a family fight. It always is with families. I'm asking whether you would tell the truth about the invoices." She was silent. "Yes," she said finally, "if he asks me directly." I thanked her and ended the call. On Sunday, Danny and I drove to Hawkins Ridge under a low gray sky. The vines ran in clean green rows along both sides of the lane. The tasting room looked almost unchanged. Someone had repainted the shutters and replaced the gravel near the entrance, but the old wooden sign still leaned slightly to the right. My father was waiting outside the event barn. He hugged me before I had decided whether I wanted him to. "You look good," he said. "So do you." He shook Danny's hand with both of his and asked about the drive. It was careful, polite, and completely unlike the conversation we needed to have. Inside, my mother had set a table for 5 near the barn windows. Cassandra stood beside a display of linen samples. She smiled at me. Then she noticed the folder in my hand. The smile stayed in place, but her eyes changed. "We're doing party plans today," she said. "I know." My mother came around the table and kissed my cheek. "Let's have lunch first. We can deal with everything else afterward." "What does everything else mean?" She touched my arm. "It means whatever you need it to mean." That was the new version of her. Gentle, welcoming, impossible to pin down. We ate rosemary chicken, roasted potatoes, and salad from white catering plates. My father asked Danny about a library project. Cassandra showed us photographs of table arrangements. My mother talked about inviting the same jazz trio that played at my grandmother's 70th birthday. Nobody mentioned the trust. Nobody mentioned the ledgers. When the plates were cleared, I placed the folder on the table. I spoke to Renee. Cassandra went still. My mother looked at her, then at me. "Why would you call Renee?" she asked. "She remembers the revised invoices." My father lowered his eyes. Cassandra folded her napkin carefully. Renee was never good with financial details. She remembered a cash deposit that disappeared from a revised invoice. That's not what happened. What happened? You're taking a routine adjustment and making it sound suspicious. Then show me the original and revised versions. I told you, some files were damaged. My mother reached for my hand. I moved it before she could touch me. "Natalie," she said, "we are offering you a chance to come back here with your head up. People will see this family together. They'll understand that the past was more complicated than they heard." Who told them what they heard? Her face tightened. "We all said things when we were hurt." "What did I say?" "That we blamed you." "You did blame me. No one accused you of stealing. You keep using that sentence like it clears you." My father pushed his chair back slightly. "Let's keep our voices down." My voice wasn't raised. I looked at Cassandra. "Send the surviving files to Greg." She held my gaze. "I will. And the water damage inventory, if there is one." My mother stood. This lunch was supposed to be kind. I put the folder under my arm. Then it shouldn't have come with conditions. Danny and I left without choosing linens. We were halfway to Richmond when an email from Cassandra reached my phone. I waited until we stopped for gas before opening it. She had attached 12 revised invoices. The originals were missing. On the first invoice, a wedding listed as paid in full on Cassandra's status sheet had been reduced by exactly $4,000. The revision date was 3 days after the wedding. The person marked as approving the change was my mother. I enlarged the invoice on my phone. "Danny, look at this." He leaned over the center console. "What am I looking at?" "The original status sheet says paid in full, $11,000. This revised invoice says $7,000. And her mother approved the change." My mother. "Sorry." I checked the payment date. The couple had paid the final amount on a Friday. The invoice was revised the following Monday after the wedding was over and after all services had been delivered. There was no business reason to reduce it. Danny finished pumping gas while I downloaded the other attachments. I didn't open them on the road. I put my phone face down and watched the hills flatten as we drove back toward Richmond. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That Cassandra sent 12 documents because she thinks they help her. Do they? I don't know yet. What would make them helpful? If the reductions explain why less money reached the ledger, but the clients already paid the higher amounts, according to the status sheet." He glanced at me. "So one of those records is false." "Yes. Which one?" "That's what she expects me to argue about." "And you're not going to? Not with her." When we got home, I changed out of the dress I'd worn to lunch and put on old sweatpants. Danny cleared the dining table while I brought down the box. I saved Cassandra's attachments in a separate folder. Then I printed each one. I wrote the event date, contract number, original amount, revised amount, and approval name on a spreadsheet. The second invoice had been reduced by $6,500. The third had been reduced by $3,000. On 2 others, a cash deposit had disappeared completely. 9 of the 12 showed my mother's approval. 3 showed Cassandra's. The approval marks weren't signatures. They were initials typed into a field. Anyone with access to the event system could have entered them. I checked the revision dates. Every invoice had been changed after the event took place. Most were changed within a week. 2 were changed more than a month later. "Would your mother normally approve discounts?" Danny asked. "Before an event, sometimes. After? No. You can't discount a wedding after the couple has already paid and gone home, unless you refund them. There are no refunds in my bank records." I added another column. The total reductions on Cassandra's 12 invoices came to $51,000. That was too large to be routine. It was also $34,000 short of the amount my parents blamed on me. I checked the 7 event gaps I'd listed earlier. 4 matched the revised invoices. 3 did not. Those 3 events had been marked paid in full, but never appeared in the ledger at all. Their listed payments totaled $22,000. 51 plus 22 gave me 73. I still had $12,000 unaccounted for. Danny went upstairs around 10. He came back with a blanket and put it around my shoulders without saying anything. At 11:30, I found a second status sheet stuck to the back of a tasting room report. It covered a private wine dinner and 2 anniversary events. The payments totaled $12,000. Each had the same handwritten notation: cash held for revised billing. There were no revised invoices for those events in Cassandra's attachments. I entered the amounts. The spreadsheet total changed to $85,000. I sat with my hands in my lap. Danny was beside me, but he didn't speak. He understood enough about numbers to know what had happened. My parents hadn't estimated the loss from a messy set of books. They had known the exact amount because someone had already identified the affected events. Every missing dollar ran through contracts controlled by Cassandra. The figure they used to fire me was the same figure hidden inside her altered invoices and withheld payment records. I had spent 10 years believing I failed to catch a vague accounting disaster. There was nothing vague about it. Someone had done the work before I entered that conference room. Someone had built the total, traced it to Cassandra's events, and then moved my name over it. If you would have kept those old records too, leave the single-word ledger in the comments. Danny finally asked, "What do you need? I need to prove the clients paid the original amounts. You have the status sheets. I need something outside the vineyard." "Renee?" Renee remembers one client had a receipt. "Call her. It's late. Tomorrow then." I looked at the spreadsheet again. "Greg needs to see this first." I sent him an email asking for a meeting. I said I had reconstructed the entire shortfall and did not want to transmit the records electronically until he advised me how to preserve them. He replied at 6:12 the next morning, "Come to my office at 10. Greg's office occupied the second floor of a brick building near the courthouse in Warrenton. The waiting room had dark green chairs and framed photographs of Virginia fields. His assistant brought me into a conference room with a long table and no windows. Greg entered carrying a yellow pad and a digital recorder. "I'd like your permission to record our discussion," he said. "Why?" "To preserve what you show me and when you showed it." I put my folder on the table. "Yes." He stated the date, our names, and that I was presenting records connected to Hawkins Ridge. Then he let me talk. I showed him the reconciliations first. I explained why they were accurate but incomplete. Then I showed him the event calendars, the status sheets, and Cassandra's revised invoices. Greg took notes without reacting. When I reached the spreadsheet total, he removed his glasses and looked at the page from a few inches away. $85,000 exactly, he said. "Yes." "Have you altered any of these source documents?" "No." "Did you create the handwritten notes?" "No." "Do you recognize the handwriting?" "Yes." "Whose is it?" "Cassandra's." He put his glasses back on. Can anyone else confirm that? My parents can. Former employees probably can. What about the invoice approvals? They were entered electronically. I can't prove who typed them. Then don't describe them as signatures. I didn't. One corner of his mouth moved. It wasn't quite a smile. No, he said. You didn't. He asked where the records had been stored. I told him. He asked who had access to our house. I said only Danny and me. He asked whether Cassandra knew what I possessed. She knows about one status sheet. Why? I confronted her on the phone. His pen stopped. What did she say? She denied knowing what I meant and asked me to send it. Did you? No. Good. He photographed each page and had his assistant scan them. Then he placed my originals back in the folder. What does this do to the trust? I asked. By itself, nothing. That's direct. You deserve a direct answer. The clause says fraud. The clause says a verified written admission of fraud. So invoices, ledgers, and a witness aren't enough. They may support other action. They do not satisfy that clause. What other action? A forensic review. Civil recovery depending on limitation issues and when facts were concealed. Removal of management authority if current trust property is at risk. Can you remove Cassandra now? Not based only on documents you brought me this morning, even though they total the exact shortfall? I'm taking that seriously. Taking it seriously is not the same as reaching a final finding. I sat back. Did Grandma know this amount came from Cassandra's events? Greg folded his hands over the yellow pad. I can't answer questions about privileged conversations. She designed a clause requiring a written admission. That's unusually specific. It is specific. Did she design it because of what happened in 2016? He looked at me for a long moment. The trust was created after those events. That isn't an answer. It is the answer I can give. I looked toward the solid conference room door. Somewhere beyond it, a printer started. Why didn't she clear me? I don't know all the decisions your grandmother made inside her family. You knew her. Yes. She sent me a card saying I was better with the truth than they deserved. That sounds like Yvonne. She let everyone think I caused the loss. Greg's expression changed slightly. Did she? My parents said the finding was poor bookkeeping. She never corrected them. Those are two different things. I felt something shift in the room. What are you saying? I'm saying I never heard your grandmother state that finding. Then whose finding was it? You need to ask the people who made it. I have. They pass me around like a customer service call. Greg capped his pen. I'll begin a formal review of the historical event revenue. I'll contact Renee Ayala and request a statement. I'll also instruct the vineyard's current accountant to preserve system backups. Will you tell my family what I gave you? I'll tell management that credible evidence requires review. I won't provide your documents without discussing it with you first. What about the engagement party? It proceeds. Why? Because the trust instruction is mandatory. Are you still bringing the sealed letter? Yes. From your office? Yes. Will anyone else have access? His face became very still. No one is authorized to open it before the reading. That was another lawyer answer. Authorized wasn't my question. I retain custody of the trust file. I didn't press him further. Not then. Before I left, Greg asked me to sign a statement describing when and how I found the records. I read every line and corrected 2 dates. He initialed the changes. As I stood, he said, Natalie, I'm going to ask you not to confront your family with the spreadsheet. I wasn't planning to. Your call with Cassandra was a confrontation. That was before I had the total. Evidence changes people's behavior, I know. No, he said. I mean, it changes the behavior of people who learn you have it. I carried the folder to my car. Renee called before I left the parking lot. Greg Moreno just contacted me, she said. I gave him your name. I figured. Are you still willing to speak with him? I told him yes. Thank you. She was quiet for a moment. I remembered something after we talked. I reached for the pen in my cup holder. What? The client with the cash receipt. I don't remember his name, but I remember the event because it rained and we had to move everything into the barrel room. What date? She gave me a Saturday in October of 2015. I checked the spreadsheet on my phone. It was one of the invoices reduced after payment. Did Cassandra tell you why she changed it? She said the groom's father complained and your mother approved a discount. That's what the revised invoice shows. But I spoke to the groom's father. He wasn't asking for money back. He wanted an itemized receipt for his business records. Did you tell Cassandra? Yes. What did she say? Renee hesitated. She said, I know what he paid. I'm fixing what Natalie sees. I wrote the sentence exactly. Would you repeat that to Greg? I just did. After we hung up, I called the groom's father's business. The number from the old event sheet still worked. A receptionist told me he had retired and asked who was calling. I gave my name and said I was reviewing an old payment record from Hawkins Ridge. He called me back that afternoon. I remember that wedding, he said. Rain came sideways. I've heard. What's the issue? Do you still have the invoice or receipt? For a wedding from 10 years ago? I know it's unlikely. He laughed once. You called the right kind of person. I keep everything. He asked me to wait. I listened to drawers opening and papers moving. Then he returned. Here it is. Hawkins Ridge Vineyard. $12,500 total. Paid in full. My revised copy showed $8,500. How did you pay? I asked. Half by check, half in cash. Do you have proof of both? I have the canceled check and a handwritten receipt for the cash. Who signed the receipt? He read the name, Cassandra Hawkins. I asked him to email copies directly to Greg and me. They arrived within 15 minutes. The handwritten receipt matched the payment amount on Cassandra's status sheet. The canceled check matched my bank record. The revised invoice removed the cash portion and lowered the total by $4,000. It was the first outside document confirming that the original status sheet was true and the revised invoice was false. I forwarded everything to Greg. Then I called my father. He answered in a whisper. I can't talk right now. I have a client receipt signed by Cassandra. Silence. The revised invoice removed the cash after she collected it, I said. I've reconstructed all $85,000. He didn't ask how. He didn't say I was wrong. Instead, he said, Your mother told me this was already handled. I gripped the phone. When? In 2016. What did she tell you was handled? He breathed out slowly. Cassandra was going to repay it. There are moments when a person answers a question you didn't realize you were still asking. My father had known the money was Cassandra's responsibility. My mother had known. They had not made a bookkeeping mistake when they blamed me. They had made an arrangement. Did she repay it? I asked. I don't know. You let me lose my job. Natalie, you let Grandma's staff think I caused this. I thought your mother was protecting the business. From what? He didn't answer. Dad, from what? I have to go. Was Grandma part of the arrangement? No. That answer came quickly. Then the call ended. A minute later, my mother texted me. Whatever Wade just said, he is confused. Please don't turn a private family solution into something ugly before your own engagement party. I read it twice. Then I took a screenshot and sent it to Greg. He called within 10 minutes. Did you ask Wade about repayment? He said. Yes. Did you know he was going to make that statement? No. Would he repeat it to me? I doubt it. I'm going to contact him. My mother will get to him first. That doesn't change what he already told you. It might change what he admits. Greg was quiet. You should assume your family now knows you have substantial evidence, he said. I already do. I'm also notifying the vineyard's outside accountant that no historical records may be destroyed, altered, or removed. Some were apparently destroyed years ago. Then management will provide an inventory of what remains. I looked at my mother's text again. What does she mean by a private family solution? That's one of the questions I'll ask. She won't answer you. Then her refusal will be documented. That was the difference between Greg and my family. He didn't pretend silence was nothing. My mother sent 3 more messages that afternoon. The first asked me to call her. The second said my father had been under stress. The third asked whether she could drive to Richmond the next morning so we could speak privately. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near my office. I chose the place because it was public and because I could walk there without giving her a reason to come into my workplace. She arrived early. My mother had taken a table near the back. She wore cream trousers and a navy blouse. Her handbag sat upright beside her chair. 2 coffees were already on the table. "I got your usual," she said. "You don't know my usual." She looked down at the cup. "It's coffee with milk. I drink it black." That bothered her more than it should have. She had come prepared to play my mother and failed on the first detail. "I can get another one. I'm fine." I sat across from her. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. A blender started behind the counter. Someone near the window laughed too loudly. My mother folded her hands. "Your father shouldn't have called you from work. That's your concern? He remembers things in pieces. He remembered Cassandra was supposed to repay the money. He misunderstood what I told him. What did you tell him? That we were handling the loss. How?" We changed procedures. We stopped accepting large cash payments. We tightened the event process. That doesn't repay $85,000. She glanced toward the next table. "Keep your voice down." My voice was already low. "Did Cassandra take the money?" My mother looked at me. I didn't fill the silence for her. Finally, she said, "Cassandra made mistakes." "What mistakes?" "She used cash from events. For what?" "Personal expenses, credit cards, some costs connected to the vineyard that she intended to reimburse herself for later." "Which vineyard costs?" "I don't remember every receipt from 10 years ago." "Because there weren't any?" She was overwhelmed. "That isn't a receipt." My mother's mouth became a thin line. She had gotten herself into debt. She kept thinking she would replace the money after the next busy season. Then the amount became too large. Did Grandma find out? Yes. The word sat between us. "Before you fired me?" Yes. I wrapped both hands around the coffee I didn't want. What did Grandma say? She was furious. With me? With Cassandra? Did she know my reconciliations matched the records I received? She understood the process. That's another yes. My mother looked away. I had expected the documents to lead me there. Hearing her confirm it still changed something. "You knew I didn't cause the loss," I said. "You should have caught it." "That isn't the same thing. You were the bookkeeper, and Cassandra was taking cash before it reached the books. You were supposed to build safeguards. I had been there 1 year. You and Dad owned the process. Your grandmother owned the business. Then why was I the only person fired?" She pushed her coffee aside. "Because we had to make a decision." "No, you had several decisions. You chose that one. You had a degree. You could find another job." I stared at her. She continued, as if the explanation became kinder with more words. "You were always independent. Cassandra wasn't. The vineyard was her whole life. If we dismissed her, everyone would ask why, clients would hear, staff would talk. She could have been charged. So you gave them me. We did not accuse you of theft. You accused me of failing badly enough to lose $85,000. You recovered." That was her answer. I had built a career, so what they did had become acceptable. "What did Grandma want you to do?" I asked. "She wanted Cassandra removed from the business until the money was repaid. But you and Dad refused. We asked for time." "To do what?" "To fix it privately. By firing me. By keeping Hawkins Ridge from collapsing. One employee stealing event deposits would not have collapsed the vineyard. A public scandal might have. Then you could have said there was an internal theft and left my name out of it." My mother's eyes moved to mine. "People already knew your grandmother was reviewing the books. If the bookkeeper left, the question stopped. There it was. They hadn't blamed me because the numbers were confusing. They blamed me because my departure made the cleanest story." What happened to Cassandra's repayment? I asked. She paid some. How much? I don't know. I don't have the figure with me. Was it less than 10,000? My mother looked toward the counter again. Did Grandma accept that? No. What did she do? She changed her estate plan. I sat back. My mother had not come to explain the past. She had come because the past now controlled the vineyard. Grandma put it in trust because you protected Cassandra. She punished the whole family. She divided it between the two granddaughters. She bypassed your father. That vineyard should have gone to him. It was hers. He spent his life there. So did she. My mother reached for her handbag, then stopped. You don't understand what happens if Cassandra loses her share. I understand the value. It's not only money. Your father and I live on that property. We work there. The vineyard supports us. You don't own either share now. Cassandra listens to us, and I don't. I didn't say that. You didn't need to. The family didn't control Hawkins Ridge anymore. The trust did. Cassandra gave my parents influence over her half because she needed them, and because they had always protected her. My half was outside their reach. If Cassandra lost hers, my parents lost their way back into control. My mother lowered her voice. The forfeiture clause was Yvonne's threat. She wanted Cassandra to spend the rest of her life afraid that one old mistake could take everything. An old mistake worth $85,000. She was 26. I was 23. You landed on your feet. You keep saying that like you knew I would. I knew you. No. You knew I was easier to sacrifice. She flinched, but she didn't deny it. I let the silence stay. After a while, she said, "We can correct what people think." How? At the party, your father can make a toast. We can say the accounting dispute was misunderstood. We can make it clear you were never dishonest. What do you want in return? Nothing. I waited. She looked down at her hands. Stop involving former employees. Stop pushing Greg toward a formal investigation. Let the letter be read, and then let this end. You don't know what the letter says. No, but you're afraid of it. Your grandmother wrote it while she was angry. How do you know when she wrote it? Greg told us the instruction was signed in 2020. That doesn't mean the letter was written then. She talked about leaving the truth where no one could hide it. The sentence changed the air between us. What truth? My mother shook her head. She liked dramatic language. Was there a written admission? Her eyes lifted to mine. I saw fear before she covered it. I don't know. That clause requires one. I know what the clause requires. And you think the letter contains one. I think Yvonne wanted to keep controlling us after she died. By documenting what Cassandra did, by refusing to let the family move on. I understood then why my mother's first response to my engagement had been a party at Hawkins Ridge. It wasn't about welcoming me home. The public post started the 30-day clock. The sealed letter created a threat they couldn't postpone. Holding the gathering on their property gave them control over the room, the schedule, the guests, and every practical detail around the reading. My mother didn't need to know exactly what was inside. She knew my grandmother had discovered Cassandra's theft. She knew the trust demanded a verified written admission. She knew Yvonne had promised to leave the truth somewhere permanent. She believed the letter could cost Cassandra half the vineyard, approximately $4.3 million. More importantly to my mother, it could put all beneficial ownership into my hands. That was why she wanted me surrounded by family when it was read. If the letter was vague, she could call it forgiveness. If it accused Cassandra without the required proof, she could call it an old woman's anger. If it contained something stronger, she wanted the first argument to happen in a room she controlled. "You knew about the engagement before you called me," I said. "No." We saw Danny's post. The catering proposal was created Sunday. It was an old template. Cassandra updated it Monday. That explanation was possible. File creation dates sometimes carried over when a template was copied. I wasn't going to weaken what I knew by arguing over what I couldn't prove. Did you destroy the event files after Grandma died? No. Did Cassandra? No. Then show Greg the damage inventory. There isn't one. Because there wasn't a leak. There was a leak. We threw away wet boxes. Nobody expected you to turn it into a criminal investigation years later. It isn't a criminal investigation. Not yet. She reached for my wrist. I moved my hand into my lap. Natalie, listen to me. Cassandra did something terrible. I'm not saying she didn't, but taking the vineyard now won't give you those years back. I haven't taken anything. You know what that clause does. So do you. She has run Hawkins Ridge since Yvonne died, with a trust holding the property. She kept it alive. She also took $85,000 and let me carry her name for it. My mother looked tired then. Not guilty. Tired. There has to be a point where punishment ends, she said. There has to be a point where it starts. I stood and left the untouched coffee on the table. By the time I reached my office, Greg had sent a message asking me to call. Sharon contacted my assistant this morning, he said when I did. What did she want? She asked that the sealed materials be delivered to Hawkins Ridge before the party so the family could review the reading arrangements. Did you agree? No. I closed my office door. Does she have any right to review them? She may review the written instructions with the other interested parties. She may not open the personal letter. Keep both in your office until the party. That is my intention. Not your assistant, not a courier. You. I understand. I looked through the glass wall toward the reception area. She admitted Cassandra took the money. To you? Yes. Would she put that in writing? No. Did she describe any written admission? She reacted when I asked, but she denied knowing. Greg took a breath. Then we still have evidence of the theft, evidence of concealment, and a witness. We do not have what the clause specifically requires. Not yet. After the call, I wrote down everything my mother had said while it was fresh. I didn't feel triumphant. The records had answered the old question. My mother answered the current one. She protected Cassandra in 2016 because Cassandra's future was tied to the vineyard, and mine was considered portable. She was protecting her again because the trust had turned that same choice into a $4.3 million risk. The engagement party wasn't a celebration they had generously offered. It was the only place left where my mother thought she could manage what my grandmother had arranged. 2 evenings later, Cody arrived in Richmond for dinner. Danny had asked him to be his best man the week after we got engaged. They had been close in college, drifted apart when work took them to different cities, then started talking again a few years earlier. I'd met Cody twice before the proposal, both times over crowded dinners where nobody discussed childhood jobs. He brought a bottle of wine and held it up when I opened the door. I realized this might be inappropriate after I bought it. It's fine. Good, because I lost the receipt. Danny came out of the kitchen. You've never returned anything in your life. That isn't true. You still own a tent with no poles. The poles may turn up. They hugged, and for an hour the evening felt normal. We ate pasta at the dining table. The vineyard files were upstairs. I had cleared away every visible page before Cody arrived. I didn't want our engagement to become a briefing session for everyone Danny trusted. Then Cody asked how the party planning was going. Danny looked at me. It's going, I said. Where are you having it? My family's vineyard. Cody twirled pasta around his fork. Where's that? Outside Middleburg. He stopped moving. What's it called? Hawkins Ridge. The fork lowered to his plate. I watched his face. Have you heard of it? I asked. Cody looked at Danny, then back at me. Your last name is Hawkins. Yes. I thought it was just a coincidence. What was? He put down his napkin. I worked there one summer. Danny leaned forward. You worked at her family's vineyard? In the accounting office. It was an internship. What year? I asked. Cody didn't answer immediately. 2016. I felt the room narrow around the table. Who did you work for? Mostly Yvonne, my grandmother. I know that now. Danny looked between us. Why didn't you ever mention this? Cody rubbed one hand over his jaw. You said Natalie's family owned a vineyard. You never said which one. I didn't connect it until right now. You knew my full name, I said. I knew Natalie Hawkins. I didn't know you were that Natalie Hawkins. The way he said it made me set down my glass. What does that mean? Cody looked toward the stairs, then at the front windows. Can we talk somewhere private? We are private. I mean, without phones on the table. Danny picked up all 3 phones and placed them on the kitchen counter. Cody waited until he sat down again. Then he looked at me. Did Yvonne ever tell you what happened that summer? She told me to keep my records. Nothing else? No. Did anyone give you a handwritten statement? I could hear the refrigerator running in the kitchen. What statement? I asked. Cody closed his eyes for a second. I should have found you years ago. What statement? Your sister wrote a confession. I didn't speak. Danny said, a confession to what? Taking event money. I kept looking at Cody. How do you know? I watched her sign it. The sentence landed without any drama. That made it worse. Tell me exactly what happened. Cody moved his plate aside. He had been helping my grandmother compare event contracts against deposits. She asked him to pull every event marked paid in full and trace the payment into the ledger. It was the same outside-in test I had failed to perform. Within 2 days, they found the gaps. My grandmother called Cassandra into the old accounting office. Cody was told to wait in the hall. He heard raised voices. Then my mother arrived. Later, my father joined them. They were in there almost 3 hours, Cody said. Your grandmother came out and asked whether my notary commission was active. You were a notary? My college job required it. I renewed before the internship. What did she ask you to notarize? A written admission. Written by Cassandra? Yes. Was it typed? No. Yvonne made her write it by hand. I held the edge of the table. What did it say? That Cassandra had taken cash payments and event deposits between March of 2015 and June of 2016. It listed the total as $85,000. She wrote that she altered or withheld invoices so the cash would not appear in the accounting records. Danny looked at me. Every part matched what I had reconstructed. Did she mention me? I asked. Yes. Cody looked uncomfortable. What did she say? She wrote that you didn't know she was taking the money. I stood and walked into the kitchen. I didn't need anything. I just couldn't stay seated. For 10 years, I had wanted one person from that room to say the plain sentence. My father had come close. My mother had admitted the choice. Neither had said what Cassandra herself wrote before I was fired. I didn't know. She had put that in her own handwriting. Danny came into the kitchen but didn't touch me. Do you want him to stop? He asked. No. I returned to the table. What happened to the confession? Yvonne told me to make a notarized duplicate. Cassandra acknowledged the writing and signature in front of me. I completed the certificate, entered it in my journal, and sealed the duplicate. Where did the first one go? Yvonne put it into a large envelope. She said it was going to Greg Moreno. Greg has had it since 2016. That was my understanding. He told me he couldn't confirm any written admission. He may not know it's in the file, or he may not be allowed to discuss it until some condition is met. Where is your copy? Cody looked directly at me. I still have it. Nobody moved. Here? I asked. In my safe deposit box in Charlottesville. Why? Because Yvonne told me to keep it. For how long? She didn't give me a date. What exactly did she say? Cody's voice softened. She said, You may need this for Natalie's sake one day. Don't give it to Wade or Sharon, even if they tell you I asked. My grandmother had named my parents. She knew what they might do before they did it. Why didn't you contact me after I was fired? I didn't know you. I didn't even know where you went. You knew my name. Yes. You could have found me. I could have. He didn't defend himself. I thought Yvonne was handling it through her attorney. She told me not to discuss it. When I heard you had left the vineyard, I assumed it was temporary. By the time I realized it wasn't, the internship was over and I was back at school. And after she died, I saw the obituary months later. I almost called Greg, but I didn't know whether I had the right to disclose a document I'd been specifically told to hold. You were told to hold it for me, I know. There was nothing useful I could say to that. Danny asked, "Can we see it tonight? The bank is closed." "Tomorrow?" "Yes." Cody looked at me. "I'll bring everything. The duplicate, my notary journal, and my commission record from that year." I nodded. After he left for his hotel, Danny locked the door and came back to the table. "Are you okay?" "No." "Do you want to call Greg?" "Not until I see it. He may already have the original. Then why didn't he say so?" "Confidentiality, the sealed instruction. Maybe your grandmother restricted access, or the original isn't there anymore." Danny looked toward the phones on the counter. "You think your mother got to it?" "I think Grandma expected her to try." The next morning, I moved my first meeting and told the office I would arrive late. Cody met us outside the bank shortly after 9. He carried a flat document case under his arm. We drove to a quiet conference room Danny's firm let us use. Cody placed 3 items on the table. The first was his old notary commission certificate. The second was a bound journal. He opened it to an entry dated in July of 2016. Cassandra's full name appeared beside the description, "Acknowledgement of handwritten admission." The identification field listed her Virginia driver's license. Her signature filled the final column. The third item was a large archival envelope. Cody opened it carefully. Inside was a photocopy of 2 handwritten pages. The copy itself was old. The paper had yellowed slightly along one edge. A notarial certificate was attached behind it with Cody's seal and signature. I recognized Cassandra's handwriting before I read the first line. "I, Cassandra Hawkins, acknowledge that I took cash belonging to Hawkins Ridge Vineyard." The statement listed how she took deposits, changed invoices, and kept certain payments from accounting. It named the exact period and the exact total. Near the bottom of the second page, she had written, "Natalie Hawkins did not know I was doing this." The bookkeeping records she received were incomplete because I withheld and revised event documents. Cassandra had signed beneath it. My grandmother had signed as a witness. Cody's notarial certificate stated that Cassandra personally appeared before him, acknowledged the document, and confirmed the signature as her own. His seal was clear. The commission number matched his certificate and journal. I read it 3 times. Then I compared the listed event descriptions with my spreadsheet. The wine dinner was there. The rainy October wedding was there. So were the 3 cash events missing from Cassandra's attachments. The amounts matched. Cody gave me permission to photograph every page. Danny scanned the documents using his firm's secure machine. We saved encrypted copies to separate drives. I checked Virginia's historical notary record using Cody's commission number. His name, commission dates, and county registration matched the certificate. Nothing depended only on memory anymore. Cassandra's own handwriting confirmed the ledgers. Cody's journal confirmed when she acknowledged it. My grandmother's signature confirmed she witnessed it. The outside client receipt confirmed one of the listed cash payments. Renee's statement confirmed the invoice changes. The pieces supported each other. "This triggers the clause," I said. Cody nodded. "That's what Yvonne intended. Greg has to verify it. When do you want to show him?" I looked at the duplicate on the table. If we took it to Greg that morning, he would have to act. My mother and Cassandra would learn about it before the party. They would deny the handwriting, attack Cody, question the journal, and spend the remaining days preparing explanations. They still believed the only dangerous document was whatever my grandmother had placed in Greg's file. They had no idea Cody existed. "The party is in 5 days," I said. Danny understood first. "You want to hear the letter? I want to hear what they present as the letter." Cody slid the duplicate back into its envelope. "You think someone will change it? I think my mother asked to review it after being told she couldn't open it. That isn't proof she'll do anything." "No. What if the real letter contains this confession?" Then Greg acts, and you never need to stand up, and if it doesn't... I looked at Cassandra's signature through the open envelope. "Keep that with you until the reading," I said. "Don't let anyone in my family know you worked at Hawkins Ridge." Cody closed the document case. "You're trusting me with this again." "No," I said. "This time I know you have it." Cody nodded. "That's fair. For the next 4 days, we behave like people preparing for an engagement party." Danny confirmed the music. I approved the rosemary chicken and chose the plain ivory linens Cassandra had shown us. We sent final names for the guest list. I bought shoes that wouldn't sink into the gravel outside the barn. Privately, I made 3 complete evidence folders. Each contained the event calendars, status sheets, revised invoices, outside receipt, canceled check, my spreadsheet, and printed copies of the messages from my mother and Cassandra. Greg already had the same records, but I wanted clean copies available in the room. Cody kept the notarized confession. He moved it from the bank into a slim leather portfolio with his commission certificate and notary journal. The portfolio stayed with him. He carried it to Richmond, took it into restaurants, and placed it beside the bed in Danny's guest room. My mother called every day. She asked about flowers, cake flavors, and whether Danny's mother preferred red or white wine. She did not mention our conversation in the coffee shop. My father sent one message: "Looking forward to seeing you Saturday." Cassandra sent a revised seating chart. She had added local vineyard owners, longtime clients, and several family friends I had not requested. I called her. We agreed on actual friends and family. These people are friends of the family. I haven't spoken to most of them in 10 years. They've known you since you were young. That doesn't make them my friends. The catering count is already final. Then remove them and add empty chairs. She sighed. Mom thought it would be good for people to see you back here. Good for whom? For everyone. I knew what she was doing. If the letter helped them, they wanted witnesses. If it hurt them, they wanted social pressure around me before I acted. "Leave the list," I said. Cassandra sounded surprised. "Really?" "Yes. That's mature of you." I ended the call before I answered. On Saturday morning, I stood in our bedroom fastening small pearl earrings while Danny adjusted his tie in the mirror. "Last chance to cancel," he said. "No. We could turn off our phones and drive west. Your mother would hunt us down. She absolutely would." He faced me. "You don't have to be calm for everyone today. I'm not doing it for them." "Who are you doing it for? I need to hear how far they're willing to go." He took my hand. "Then we hear it." Cody drove separately. Before he left Richmond, he showed me the portfolio in the trunk of his car. It was inside a locked metal document case, bolted beneath the cargo floor. "This feels excessive," Danny said. "Your future wife told me not to let it out of my control. You listened faster than I do. I'm learning from your mistakes." Cody locked the car. He wore a dark gray suit and a blue tie Danny had chosen. Nothing about him suggested he was carrying the document that could transfer half the vineyard. We reached Hawkins Ridge shortly before 4. Cars already lined the gravel lot. Staff moved between the kitchen and barn carrying trays. The doors had been opened to the vineyard, and white flowers stood in low glass bowls along the tables. My mother met us near the entrance. She hugged Danny first. Then she held my face between both hands. "You look beautiful." "Thank you." Her eyes searched mine. "You're not going to let anything spoil today, are you? That depends on what happens." It was only a question. No, it wasn't. She released me. Cassandra appeared behind her in a pale green dress. She kissed my cheek and handed me a glass of sparkling wine. "To new beginnings," she said. I set the glass on a passing tray. "Where's Greg?" "He'll be here." "What time?" "Before the reading." "Where's the letter?" My mother answered. "With Greg, where you insisted it stay." She smiled as she said it. At the time, I believed that meant she hadn't reached it. I learned later that one of Greg's assistants had delivered the trust materials to the barn that afternoon. My mother had sent the office a detailed message saying the family needed the outer instruction envelope to confirm the required attendees and reading order. She copied Greg, but he was in a meeting and didn't see it before the delivery. The assistant brought a sealed transport envelope containing the instruction page and my grandmother's personal letter. She gave it to my mother in the Vineyard office and recorded Sharon Hawkins as the receiving family representative. My mother signed for it. She had almost 40 minutes alone before Greg called and told the assistant the package should never have left the office without him. By the time he arrived, the outer envelope was sealed again. I didn't know any of that as guests began filling the barn. I only knew my mother was calm. She introduced Danny and me to people who remembered my firing. Some hugged me. Some said they were glad the family had worked things out. One older vineyard owner squeezed my hand and told me, "Your mother always said you'd come home when you were ready." I looked across the room at her. She was standing beside Cassandra, smiling for a photograph. My mother had changed my absence into another choice. Greg arrived at 5:20 carrying a black leather case. He went directly to the small vineyard office behind the bar. My mother followed him. I started after them, but Danny touched my elbow. "Give him a minute." Through the office window, I watched Greg remove a large cream envelope from a gray transport sleeve. He examined the seal. My mother stood beside the desk, speaking quickly. Then Cassandra entered and closed the blinds. "Is that normal?" Danny asked. "No." Cody came up on my other side. "The document is still in my car," he said quietly. "Keep it there." "What if they start early?" "They won't. Mom wants everyone watching." 10 minutes later, Greg emerged with the cream envelope in his hand. My mother followed. He came directly to me. "There was a procedural error involving delivery," he said. "What kind of error?" "The sealed materials were brought here before I arrived." "Who had them?" "Your mother accepted the transport envelope." I looked at Sharon. She was adjusting a flower bowl. Was the personal letter opened? The interior seal appears intact. Appears? I inspected it. "That isn't what I asked. I have no evidence it was opened." "Do you have evidence it wasn't?" His jaw tightened. "No? Then don't treat it as reliable until you read it. I'll read what is inside in accordance with the instruction. And if it doesn't make sense, we'll address that." I looked at the cream envelope. The flap was sealed with a dark red circle of wax, pressed with my grandmother's old vineyard stamp. I had seen that stamp on gift certificates and anniversary bottles. Nothing looked disturbed. My mother had spent her life arranging details people mistook for truth. A clean seal would not reassure me. Dinner began at 6. My father sat at the family table between Cassandra and my mother. Danny sat beside me. Cody sat near the end, close enough to see Greg, and far enough that my family paid little attention to him. During the meal, my mother kept conversation moving. She asked Danny's mother about the wedding. She told a story about Cassandra organizing her first vineyard event. She described me as our city girl, even though I had grown up on the same property as my sister. My father barely ate. Once, I caught him looking at me. He opened his mouth as if he might speak, then reached for his water. After the plates were cleared, Cassandra took the microphone. "Before Greg reads Grandma's letter, I want to say how much this means to all of us." She stood near the center of the barn with the vineyard behind her. "Natalie and I have lost a lot of years. Families get stuck in old versions of events. People get hurt, and sometimes nobody knows how to be the first person to let go." She looked at me. "I'm glad you finally came back." Several guests applauded. I did not. Cassandra continued. "I hope tonight lets us remember that we've always loved each other, even when we didn't understand each other." She returned the microphone to its stand. My mother kissed her cheek as she sat down. Then Greg stood. He explained that my grandmother had left written instructions requiring a personal letter to be opened and read at the first engagement celebration involving either granddaughter. He stated that all required people were present and that the reading fell within the 30-day period. My mother brought him the cream envelope. She held it while he broke the wax. The sound was small. I still heard it from across the table. Greg removed 3 folded pages. He checked the first page, then looked briefly at my mother. She gave him a calm, encouraging nod. He began, "My dear Cassandra and Natalie, If you are hearing this, then one of you has found the person with whom she intends to build a life. I wish I could be there to see it." The phrasing was too polished. My grandmother would have named the engaged granddaughter. She would have named the person beside her. She didn't write around people. Greg continued, "I have a confession to make. I allowed pride and anger to shape the way I handled a disagreement within our family." My mother lowered her eyes. Across from her, Cassandra exhaled. The letter described the missing revenue as an accounting dispute. It said records had been incomplete, responsibilities had overlapped, and decisions were made under pressure. It said neither granddaughter had acted with the intention to harm the other. That sentence cleared Cassandra without naming what she had done. It also placed part of the fault on me. According to the letter, Cassandra and I had each allowed resentment to grow. My parents had made difficult decisions to preserve the vineyard. No old document should carry more weight than the family gathered in the barn. Greg slowed when he reached that line. He read it again. No old document should carry more weight than the family gathered here today. Then he looked at the page in silence. My mother spoke from her chair. "Please continue, Greg." He finished the final paragraph. It asked Cassandra and me to forgive each other. It said Hawkins Ridge belonged equally to us in spirit, whatever legal provisions might suggest. It ended with a sentence about choosing love over blame. Greg lowered the pages. My mother stood before he could speak. "That was Yvonne's final wish," she said. She turned toward the guests. She knew this family had suffered because an unfortunate bookkeeping failure became larger than it should have. Natalie was young. Cassandra was young. Wade and I did our best to protect both our daughters and the business that supports this community. My father looked at her. Cassandra reached for his hand beneath the table. My mother continued, "We've all agreed that no one person was responsible for what happened. Tonight closes that painful chapter. I had agreed to nothing. She knew that. Still, she said it in front of everyone. Then Cassandra stood beside her. "I forgive Natalie," she said, "and I hope she can finally forgive me." People began clapping. My mother looked directly at me as if applause could make the decision for me. I stayed seated. I let the clapping fade on its own. Greg started folding the pages. At the end of the table, Cody pushed back his chair. He had slipped out during the first paragraph and retrieved the slim portfolio from his car. Now he stood with one hand inside his jacket. "Greg," he said, "don't close that file yet." Greg looked up. My mother turned toward Cody with the annoyed expression she usually saved for catering staff. "This is a family matter," she said. Cody walked toward the center table. "My name is Cody Banks. I worked here during the summer of 2016. Cassandra's face emptied. My father whispered, "Cody?" My mother stared at him. She remembered. Cody placed the portfolio in front of Greg. "I was the notary of record when Cassandra Hawkins acknowledged a handwritten confession concerning the missing event revenue." Nobody spoke. Cody opened the portfolio and removed the duplicate, his old commission certificate, and the notary journal. My mother stood. That document was confidential. It was the first thing she said. Not fake, not mistaken, confidential. Greg looked at her. "You know which document he means?" She sat down again. Cody handed him the confession. "This is the independently notarized duplicate Yvonne Hawkins asked me to keep." Cassandra appeared before me, confirmed the statement, and signed my journal. Cassandra pushed away from the table. I was pressured into writing something. "So it exists," Greg said. "I didn't say that. You just did." He adjusted his glasses and began reading. Guests shifted in their chairs. Someone near the barn doors whispered Cassandra's name. My mother looked around the room, perhaps searching for the person who could still be managed. There wasn't one. Greg read the 2 handwritten pages in silence. Then he opened Cody's journal and compared the entry. "Is this your signature?" he asked Cassandra. "I don't remember what I signed 10 years ago." Cody placed his commission certificate beside the journal. Greg asked for a laptop. One of the vineyard employees brought him the office computer. He checked Cody's historical commission number against the state record, then compared the seal, dates, and county registration. Everything matched. He looked at me. "Do you have the reconstructed event records here?" I placed one of my folders in front of him. Greg arranged the confession beside my spreadsheet. He checked the listed dates against the event calendars and revised invoices. Then he opened Renee's signed statement from his own file. "The amount admitted here is $85,000, he said. "That matches the historical shortfall and the event-level reconstruction." My mother stepped closer. "You cannot make a trust decision in the middle of a party." "The trust already made the decision," Greg said. Her mouth opened. He turned to Cassandra. "The forfeiture provision requires a verified, written admission of fraud against Hawkins Ridge Vineyard or Yvonne Hawkins's estate. This document is a written admission. Its verification is supported by the notarial certificate, journal entry, witness signature, outside payment record, business ledgers, and Ms. Ayala's statement." Cassandra looked at me. "You planned this?" "No," I said. "Grandma did. You've wanted the vineyard since the will reading. I haven't worked here in 10 years. That didn't stop you from taking half. I didn't take half. Grandma gave us half each." My mother pointed at the pages Greg had read. "That is a copy." "It is a notarized duplicate of an acknowledged original," Cody said. Greg nodded. "The clause does not require the first physical sheet. It requires a verified, written admission. This satisfies it." He stood. His voice remained level. "Under the terms of the Hawkins Ridge Trust, Cassandra Hawkins has forfeited her entire beneficial interest. Her 50% share transfers to Natalie Hawkins, effective immediately. Cassandra no longer has authority to act for the trust or manage trust property unless Natalie and I later authorize it." The room stayed quiet. Half of Hawkins Ridge had been worth approximately $4.3 million when my grandmother died. Now the whole beneficial interest belonged to me. Cassandra looked at our parents. My father lowered his head. My mother said, "Wade, do something." He didn't. Cassandra picked up her bag and left through the side doors. The gravel scattered beneath her shoes. A few seconds later, we heard her car start. She left before dessert was served. Greg collected both versions of the letter and placed them in separate sleeves. "This reading document is now disputed evidence," he said. "Nobody touches it." My mother's face changed. Greg noticed. "What?" he asked. She shook her head. "Nothing." He looked at the broken wax seal, then at her. "You accepted custody of the transport envelope this afternoon. I accepted a sealed package. You signed for it. I was told to review the instructions. Where are the original contents? You just read them." "No," he said. "I don't believe I did. That was when I knew for certain." The confession Greg had read first was fake. It wasn't my grandmother admitting she mishandled our family. It was my mother's replacement, written to make Cassandra's theft disappear. My mother left the barn with Greg still asking questions. The party ended quietly after that. Some guests came over to me. Most didn't know what to say. Danny's mother helped the catering staff cover the untouched cake. My father found me outside near the old equipment shed. "I knew Cassandra took some money," he said. "You knew enough?" "Yes." He rubbed both hands over his face. "Sharon said Cassandra would repay it. She said blaming a process failure would keep the vineyard safe. You let the process failure have my name." "I did." For once he didn't soften it. "I kept thinking your mother would fix the next part," he said. "Then years passed, and admitting it became harder. It became harder for you." "Yes." He looked older than he had that morning. "I'm sorry, Natalie." It was the first direct apology he had ever given me. I didn't hug him. "I believe you're sorry tonight," I said. "I don't know what you'll be tomorrow when Mom needs you to agree with her again." He nodded. "That's fair. If you want any relationship with me, tell Greg everything. Don't make me drag each fact out of you. I will. You don't get credit for doing it now." "I know." He did tell Greg everything. 3 days later, My mother surrendered the real letter through an attorney. She had hidden it in the locked cabinet in the Vineyard office. My grandmother's actual letter directed Greg to open a restricted file stored in his Warrenton file room. Inside was Cassandra's original handwritten confession. It matched Cody's duplicate. The real letter said I had failed to detect the theft, but I had not caused it. My grandmother wrote that Cassandra's actions were deliberate and that my parents had chosen convenience over truth. She also wrote that she hoped neither granddaughter's engagement would ever trigger the clause. She had given Cassandra years to repay the money and correct the story. Cassandra did neither. A document examiner later confirmed the signatures. Greg's office documented the transfer and removed Cassandra from Vineyard management. There was no arrest. The old theft had too many timing and evidence issues for anyone to promise a criminal case, and the trust consequence was already complete. The forged substitute created a separate legal problem for my mother. Greg referred the tampering to counsel and tightened every custody procedure in his office. My mother paid her own legal fees and resigned from all Vineyard operations. She never apologized to me. For several months, her messages alternated between anger and concern. She said I had humiliated Cassandra. She said my grandmother had manipulated us. She said I was punishing my parents by limiting their access to a business they had helped build. I answered once, "You protected Cassandra with my name. You don't get to use family as the reason I should ignore it." Then I stopped responding. Cassandra sent me one email offering to give up management voluntarily if I restored part of her interest. I forwarded it to Greg. I did not reply. My father remained at Hawkins Ridge during the transition. I let him keep the house he shared with my mother under a written occupancy agreement. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a practical arrangement with dates, responsibilities, and boundaries. He kept his promise to tell the truth. When people asked why Cassandra left, he no longer mentioned bookkeeping failure. He said she had taken event revenue and the family had blamed me to hide it. That mattered more than another apology. I didn't sell Hawkins Ridge. I hired an independent general manager and moved all cash handling under a two-person process. Event contracts now connect directly to the accounting system. Nobody can revise a paid invoice without a recorded approval and an automatic notice to the trustee. Renee helped us rebuild the missing archive. Cody gave the duplicate to Greg for permanent trust storage, along with his journal entry. Danny and I married that fall. Cody stood beside him as best man. My father attended. My mother and Cassandra did not. The following spring, I moved my grandmother's old desk back beside the accounting office window. In the bottom drawer, I keep the card she sent when I earned my CPA license. Beside it is a copy of the real letter. The truth didn't return the 10 years they took from me. It did put every name back where it belonged. If you stayed with me to the end, please subscribe and tell me which city you're watching from.